Kathleen, welcome to the podcast.
So glad to be here, although we were just in Mexico 3 days ago. So it's a
I'd
little bit
rather
of
be
back to
there.
reality, right?
We should have just done the podcast there. It probably would have been like on the beach,
Oh my gosh. We
soaking it
would have
up.
had the sound would have been horrible, but yeah, it would have been nice to have a margarita in hand while we were doing this. That
Yes.
was such a good trip. Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you came.
Loved it.
Yeah, we've gotten some great feedback. So we're going to send everyone a link like by today for the next one. So
Yeah, yeah.
while they're hot. So we met because I was on your show
Yep.
pre-COVID, built some incredible communities, you built some incredible businesses. I'd like you to just take us from the top. What
Well,
made
what
you
was so neat, I have to say, you and I met, I think it was 6 years ago, something like that. Yeah, pre-COVID. And you had said you were going to launch the Female Founder Collective. And you did exactly what you said you were going to do. You wanted to make women rich and you wanted to build this, thriving community. And it's so admirable when I think about how many people claim they're going to go do something and then they just lose steam and momentum and kind of exit stage right. And you've stayed the course, and this thing just keeps kind of growing and gaining momentum. So good on you.
Thank you.
I'm like, it's so cool to go back into like 12 million businesses, I think is what you said you wanted to get together. You're on the path. So the journey has really been very much a jungle gym. So I did the expected thing, did 10 years in corporate, worked with some of the biggest brands in the world. We were mainly doing brand advertising and just found myself not really proud of the work that we were doing.
When you say what, when you say that, will you just give a little bit more color and context about what your business was?
So that was when I was working for other people. So I was working for Ogilvy and some of the big ad agencies, and we were just doing brand advertising. So advertising for big brands, marketing to women. And I just felt like we were actually engineering more insecurity, lack, want, fear than emboldening women to go and do more. And so I just felt like there was a better way to do it. So I started my own company called Grayce, named after my grandmother, who was this tiny, mighty woman, 90 pounds soaking wet, who ran a schoolhouse in Regina, Saskatchewan, grades K through 12 on her own and had 5 kids, much like you. She had a lot of kids and was doing a lot of things.
I can't compete with 5 kids and running a preschool. That's
And the ambition was pretty delusional. I was like, I'm going to go work with the biggest brands in the world, the Nikes of the world, the Verizons, the NBCs, the Bacardis, the Beats by Dre's, the big kind of iconic brands moving markets. And I went and did it. The business took off. We've managed over $500 million in the past 10 years, worked with some of the most iconic brands. And as I was building that, I didn't have any entrepreneurs within arm's reach, no entrepreneurs in the family, no friends that had gone and done it. Most of my girlfriends had kind of gone the more traditional expected route. And so I started this platform called Build, which is how you and I first met, to just help women get unstuck and get after it and chase down their dreams and figure out what that was. And the first genesis for that was this interview series of, sitting down with just badass women building things like yourself. And that morphed into a digital course and workshops and speaking and a book and TV shows. And so that's my passion project. That's been my, 5 to 9 as I've had this other really healthy 9 to 5 business. And it's been the joy of my life now to be able to have the means to concentrate on it more, as you and I were like talking about last week.
so I'm curious with building both, did you feel like you were able to take learnings from what you had mentioned, like instilling fear, insecurity? Like, how did you then go sell these big brands on something when that's sort of what paid the bills was the other? It's sort of like my TV show. It's built on tearing women apart. And here I am trying to bring women together.
It is very ironic, and I haven't honestly figured it out completely. You've got this amazing, healthy relationship with all these incredible Fortune 100, like big brands. And then you're like, everyone leave, jump ship, and go start your own thing if you're working for one. But I think, on the flip side, they're smart enough to know also, and you see this, I'm sure, with the female founder collective, that like this is a huge growing segment. 50% of women, their number one goal in life right now is not to have a baby or buy a home or get married. It's to start a business. Like they want to leave and start a business. And so I think some of these bigger brands are recognizing that it's a huge growing segment. We've got more and more power, and you've got to also figure out how to serve them in kind of a more deliberate sort of way.
Yeah. So you've gone through many expansions and iterations from speaking, the TV show, now a book. What are you hoping, like what is in the book? Let's dive into that. And obviously we have to leave something open for everyone to go and buy the book, but like what made you take on that task? Because that's not an easy thing at all.
You've been there, you've done that.
It is, it is. Until you've done it, it's like, I feel like it's like someone trying to explain to you what labor is like, and then you're like, it's not that, it can't be that bad. These people, I remember before I wrote my book, I was like, people are so dramatic. These women that are complaining, like, it's so hard. I'm like, it's fucking writing a book.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
What was the hardest part for you?
The hardest part for me was in each phase, like rereading the same thing that you've written 100 times. And then beginning to sort of, because you're so close to it, you're like, is this any good? Is what I'm saying matter? And then once you're through that and you hate it because you've read it so many times, then it's like it's finding out that your publisher doesn't really have a strategy or a way to sell books. And so that's on you too. And then if you've never done that before and budget is tight, you're like, cool, let me figure this out.
It's when you call on friends. Here
Yeah.
I am. You're hooking me up. Okay, so the book, so this is this bad boy, Build Like a Woman, the blueprint for creating a business and life you love. It's half mindset and half skill set. So what I found going into at least my business and also working with all these businesses is we were only focused on skill set. So, and I've become like a trained assassin in all things skills. So, financials, sales, brand strategy, pitching, marketing, launching something into the world, how to do go to market strategy. Like that is what my hardcore training is in. And so I just felt like, okay, there's a huge opportunity to take what we're doing for these big brands, and they all do it systematically in exactly the same way, and bring that formula downstream to democratize it for a small business owner, because there's a reason all these brands are doing it the way that they are because it works at driving sales kind of at scale. So that's the skill set part. But I wanted to start with mindset, which is everything from fear to breakdowns, which is a big focus in the book. We actually start from the place of breakdowns and things falling apart, to building a team, to having a vision. So really, how do you kind of get your mind right? Because that is what I wanted. If I were to have done it all over again, it would be like, okay, how do I really create the right foundation and the right mindset before I then get into kind of the hardcore business building that I need to do and all the skill set work that I need to do. So it's half and half. And I think, it's intended to be a blueprint and a framework. It's pretty unsexy. It's like a do-it-yourself manual that you can kind of keep going back to and keep on your desk. I was so inspired by Julia Cameron, The Artist Way. Have you ever used that?
No,
Oh,
no.
so good. Like when you get stuck creatively, you just go do these morning pages, and she's got all these kind of formulas to work through. And so I just wanted something like that that could just be something that people could have with them, feel like they've got a friend, feel like they've got a champion with them to work through some of these things that we do. because 70% of business owners are solopreneurs. So they're on their own, they don't have a team like we do.
Right. What would you say the hardest part, and maybe you share this in the book, has been about being an entrepreneur?
The hardest part for me initially was seeing breakdown. So you kind of go from, in my case, having this like super prescribed life that looks really good and glossy on the surface to moving into entrepreneurship. And all of a sudden, I felt like my life was breaking down left, right, and center. It was
Like,
like,
like what was starting to break down? Like how was it breaking down?
friends were falling off. So like my traditional friends who kind of went and did the prescribed thing, like they're falling off. My partner doesn't want to be with me anymore because now I'm like working so intensely on this business, right? And not so focused on them. They were a bit narcissistic. Like, so that relationship goes. I don't have the money to pay for like the great, beautiful apartment that I used to live in. So all of a sudden, no health insurance, no, I'm funneling all my savings back into the business to pay for employees at the time. I was giving people like nice, cushy 6 figure. I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, 6 figures, you got it. You want a cushy bonus based on net new business? Sure, of course. Meanwhile, I'm like further and further and further in the red, right? And so my family think I'm crazy because they don't have we have no entrepreneurs in the family. They're like, what the hell are you doing? So I just felt like everything was wrong, everything was going sideways for a long time. And I think that's the hardest part. I'm curious to know what you think, but I think was the hardest part early days because now life is like good and juicy and I designed this thing and it's bespoke to me. But at the time, things fall off before they kind of like come back together again. And so that was really tough. So I've got a concept in the book called Big B breakdowns and little B breakdowns. And the idea is that we've got to embrace that in the building journey. So Big B are those kind of like cataclysmic life events that blindside you and start to bring you to your knees. It's losing the partner, getting divorced, um, struggling in that big way, you feel like you're blindsided. It's usually more externally driven. And then those little B breakdowns, that's more of the gnawing, the lack of the alignment, that feeling that something is not quite right. It's the pebble in the shoe. And so, what I want people to really understand for anyone who's listening is that things are constantly going to be falling apart for your greatest, highest good so you can break through in new ways and to new degrees of to new levels. And so we need to celebrate these breakdowns as they're happening because it's just part of the journey of building.
What was your stake in the ground? Like, if it doesn't improve by this metric, then I'm out because you're going into debt, you're losing your partner, you're losing your friends. Like, I'm sure you were probably questioning, like, was this all worth it? How did you know to keep going? And how did you see those little glimmers of hope?
That's such a good question. I don't know that I did initially. And so my bent is always to go talk to other women to learn or go talk to other people to learn. And I actually think, I never really thought about it, but I think because there was really no deliberate strategy to it. But when I started the interview series, I think that's why, because I personally needed to sit down with other women and I was hearing the same thing over and over again of like, it gets worse before it gets better. And
Yeah,
so I think that really helped. I also love to play this game. What's the worst thing that could happen?
I love that game.
Right? Like, and I'm like, okay, I go back to like a corporate job, didn't work, kind of head held low. By the way, no one's paying attention to like a goddamn thing that you're doing, but that's the worst thing that happens, right? Like I crawl back, same salary, same everything, and I'm back in corporate and
Yeah.
take another swing at it in a few years, sort of thing. It ain't that bad.
I love that. I love that you shared that. I've been having a friend ask me that recently a lot. Like, well, what's the worst that could happen? And then every time I go through that exercise, all right, I'm like, okay, I could, that's fine. I can live through that.
I can live with that. Yeah. What was the hardest thing for you early days?
I think for us, it was more because I had only just worked for a designer for 3 years. So like to me, the idea of failing wasn't as risky. And I think the hardest part was the financials. Like there was just no money for anything. And I remember our bank telling us, like, when you hit 5 million, you'll be profitable. You should sell the company then. And I made this thermostat on the wall, and my whole team, which was like three people, was like, it looks like a very phallic like penis on the wall. And I was like, I don't care what it looks like, penis or not, 5 million
This
is
is so good. I'm doing this. Okay. To hit
uh
new targets like the fundraising goals.
yeah. That's what I was like.
Oh my God, this is so good. So we play a game when we're going after like brand targets, and pitching, where we'll put pictures on the wall and people on the wall who we want to take down. Like, okay, we're going after Volvo or whomever it is. And then it's like a dialing for dollars where it's like whoever starts to cross off. I love the idea of the whip from politics, where you kind of like, you're just trying to get as many people on your bill as possible, as fast as possible. But that's cool. We're gonna have to do, I like the financial target. I mean, you ring a bell as you hit different levels,
You
sort of
do, and
thing.
it gets people excited, and you're filling it in, and you're at least feeling like there's a visual to accompany like what's happening. It's not just on a spreadsheet in a computer.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it was financial. And then it was just really hard. And I made the mistake when my co-founder was like, how much do you need to live? And I literally added it up just bare bones. And that was my salary. And that was hard, right? There was no extras. And I think
I
also,
put you in the financial section of the book which is our chapter 7, as we kind of get into the skill set, we start with money, because I think that's a conversation that we just don't have enough. Like the idea that I remember you talking about how you brought a president in and they were making more money than you didn't take a bonus for 6 years or something like that. And so you've got to do what's in the best interest of the business. And for a long time, usually that means bare bones, you're just covering, what you need to survive. I don't know how all these other kids are doing it who make it look so glamorous, like they're on all these trips. And I didn't figure, I don't know what is happening or how their lives are being sponsored as they're building these businesses. But like
I know.
for me, that took me a long time to have the lifestyle that I have now.
Oh, for sure. I never understand it. I still don't. I feel like there could be a whole series that's like to those specific group of people, like, how did you do this? Like, it's a very curious topic. Hey, my loyal listeners, it's Rebecca. Did you know that I have a Substack where I write about all of the materialistic things like my favorite sweatsuits or what I pack for my trips, all the things outside of my daily work and life that sort of just make things tick and that I love. So if you do enjoy reading, head over to substack.com/Rebecca Minkoff, press the button to subscribe, support the cause, and I hope that with all of the busy things in your life, this brings you a little bit of shopping joy. But back to your journey. What were those glimmers of hope that made you say, okay, it's now I'm now seeing the fruits of my labor pay off?
Nike was a big one. So I wanted to do Nike women's strategy. That was one of those on the board. I ran to that every morning. Like I visualized winning that account every single morning. And we were going up against like Wyden and Droga 5. And for those who don't know, like big, big agencies. Yeah, like with serious teeth, real chops. And I just really stood my ground. I was like, look, we're a super small shop and we can deliver for you. You're going to pay us if you want us to pitch. I'm not pitching for free, just out of principle. I like don't believe in that as a concept. And we won. We won. And that for me was like, okay, I can set a target. And I then started to move in a different direction because I was like, okay, I don't have scale. I don't have a huge team. But what I can do is I can be super specific about what I want to take down. Like I can have that laser light focus in targets. And so that's just what I started to do, like across everything in my business, interviews, things with build, like just being hyper specific about what I want to go do. And then that's all I focus on. Like I am just a dog with a bone. And the more and more I was starting to kind of take down what I'd set my sights on, it was, you build confidence that way, which is cool. But again, that's, for anyone who can like do a lot. And Allie and I were talking about, people are just like out there and at everything and participating in everything and working with everyone. And it's just not, it's never been my way. I'm like a less is more sort of person,
Yeah.
fewer, better, smaller.
Yeah.
But I think everyone has to figure out what works for them.
Yeah. I think for me, it was always quantity and then it becomes quality.
Yeah.
It's like, so I feel you on that. So how have you adapted now your life so that you don't have the big B?
I really pay attention to, I really listen to my body and I really pay attention to stimulus that's going on around me. So I'm really able to catch things when they're little B breakdowns. Like I know it's coming and I know, okay, I'm in business with this partner. They're doing a deal in a way that feels really out of alignment with me. The contract language, for example, is starting to feel a bit predatory. And I've now been negotiating this deal for 7 months, but I'm going to walk away, even if no one else understands why, because I know that this is going to lead to a big B breakdown, And so I think just trusting your gut and getting really solid on that, paying attention to it. And I have something called the 60-second prime, which is in the book, which is like every morning I root myself with meditation and exercise and how I eat. So like 20, 20, and 20 at the very least, ideally more, which keeps me super grounded, super rooted. Those two things have just made such an impact in, not hitting as many rock walls. But I also learn through blowing things up and crashing into things. That's kind of, I think some people have that as their learning style. Like they just create chaos and that is, I also have to be very careful because like that's my natural bent is like I like to also see what's going to happen and how bad things can get sometimes and see if like, because I create through destruction. Like that's my natural way. Do you have any friends like that or know anyone like that?
I do. It's interesting. We had two different people at Rebecca Minkoff, two different time periods, actually three. And they all worked for, I don't know if I should say the name, a very big, well-known global designer. And one of them said to me, when you start working at this designer's company, they feel that productivity is achieved through chaos.
Mm.
And I watched them create fucking chaos. And it was not productive at all.
Not good for your culture. Yeah.
No, but it didn't yield anything except more chaos. And I just I never forgot what she said because I would watch it in action and we were too with one of the people that worked with us, we were too slow to like nip it in the bud. And it was almost our demise. And so I've always been on the lookout ever since. Like anyone who's worked at that company who's been trained with that mentality.
Yeah.
Nope, thank you so much. Love that brand, but not for me.
Yeah. And I think that's also just part of being a solid founder is like, and I didn't know this for a long time. I would just run super fast with really sharp scissors. Like, you need to know yourself. You need to know what your Achilles heels are, like the stuff that triggers you, your weaknesses as a leader, what your style is, and just like wholly own it. Because if not, it can also just kind of run amok.
Yep. Yep. I tend to be more like run, think about it as I'm putting the wheels on the bus,
Yeah.
run towards something. But yeah, it is sometimes nice to have the deeper thinker who moves a little slower as your co-founder. So where do you go from here? You have this incredible TV show with Hello Sunshine, Reese Witherspoon, Emma Grady. You have the book coming out. Where do you see yourself going? Are you leaning more into build? less into your 9 to 5.
Yeah, I think the goal is to harmonize and bring the worlds together. So bring the B2B and bring the B2C craft project together, and really approach something that is a business from the head, and a business from the heart, and figure out how to meld those two worlds a bit more. So that'll be coming together this next year. And my goal and intention is really just to be with women globally. I want to be in rooms with women, doing keynotes, doing workshops, helping them get airborne, helping them get unstuck. I've spent a lot of time behind computers, and I'm just excited about that. So 2025 is going to be the year of like living out loud, being with the people, and not being in my head, like being in my heart a bit more.
Yeah. And was it scary to set up your business to be able to run with you focusing now on this kind of new trajectory?
Terrifying. We're all control freaks. It's terrifying, but the sign of a healthy business is one that operates without you. It just does, and if anything, probably operates better without you at times. So it was time, and yeah, I've got the greatest team. So we're on the up and up.
How would you say you empowered them or transferred how you want things done so that you could truly sort of not fly, but like go focus on something else? Because I feel like that's a hard thing for people to imagine.
Yeah, I spend so much time on vision and company culture that everyone is, and I personally vet everyone so intensely. I loved at the retreat someone saying, you need to be able to fly all the way from New York to Tokyo with someone and love their company. I mean, it's really so true to really spend time kind of picking the right people, imbuing them with your vision, and then trusting that they have those ninja super skills. I always like to think of like the Pulp Fiction team, like we all have special skills. Someone throws knives, someone has sabers, and so you truly bring on subject matter experts who are better than you at what they do and have that verticalized expertise. So I think that's been the key for me is really just like being wholly obsessed with the vision of where we're going and the company values and making sure that everyone breathes that. And if they don't, if they're like off by a few degrees, they're out, you know?
Yep. And where do you fit your personal life into this whole new path?
It's all for me, it's all very fluid now. There's really no like separation. I think it's just this like one thing sloshes into the next. Becoming a mom is a huge focus for me right now, building my family. I punted that for longer than I should have, honestly. And so that is now that is now like front and center for me, above and beyond the business. Like the business is great and will continue to be great. And I think that's the beautiful thing too, when you build a really healthy, stable business, you can switch gears and the wheels don't come off the bus, like you can kind of pivot back and forth. You've done that though. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me like I could do both really well at the same time. And so,
When you say both, you mean family and business or two
yeah,
business?
yeah.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of regrets about I don't even know how I would have controlled it, but I definitely didn't feel present even if I was bodily with my children. I didn't feel present with them and I couldn't figure out how to feel present because it felt like there was always something on fire. And it's one thing that I wish every woman could figure out. Like, there's a dumb, it's not a dumb meme, but I see it often. Like, no one will remember how many nights you stayed late at the office, but your children will remember that you were gone. And it's like dinging that into these moms of like, it's okay to be present and take that time and check out. I'm very much doing that with this little guy, but I think it's like, man, I wish I would have done that more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wish I would have, I think, charged into motherhood sooner than I did. Um, But I was just wholly consumed with the business and honestly loving it. I was just loving that feeling of it being all consuming. And so I think for anyone who wants that and knows you want that, like, don't wait, is what I would say too. Just go do it, you know?
Yeah, but the beautiful
Yeah.
thing is now that you're pursuing motherhood, you will be so present, and that's such a gift.
And I can do it on my own, which you need the financial means to be able to do that. You know, if you've got your own business, you've got to be able to afford childcare and sending kids to school and all those things. And that takes moolah, which takes time to be able to do. So,
Yep, this is true. This is true. So share with us where you can buy the books if you're on a book tour, where you're going to be, all the places, links and things.
so Build Like a Woman is available wherever books are sold. Support your independent bookstore if you can. It is also available on audio, and I will be popping up all across the country in 2025. We'll be announcing some tour dates, so be on the lookout for those at buildlikeawoman.com.
I love seeing you. I love reconnecting after
Me
so
too.
long.
Oh
And
my gosh. Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to today's episode. I also want to ask you to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it actually helps with search and algorithms. So if you love this podcast, it is an easy way to get it more visible and out there. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff, at RM Superwomen, and be sure to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Thank you again, and you will hear from me next week.